Ah, good. Oh, doesn't like me. Do you want to try to figure it out? I'll talk while you try to figure that out. This thing is gonna kill me. Trying to trip over this thing. So this is not a mandatory one, right? Yeah, you said this was mandatory. This isn't mandatory. You don't have to be here if you don't want to be here. Stephen Covey charges $100,000 for one of these things. Well, I like to think so. It's the success secrets of the motivational superstars. Back in 1984, I read a book called Seeds of Greatness that changed my life. It was one of these motivational speakers that talked about the importance of goal setting. And I started writing in a journal, and I think I'm on to journal number 23 now that I've been writing on. And I've been keeping track of my goals since 1984. And I'm a pretty clever guy. They didn't tell you anything about me, but I've got lots of good background and things like that. So I've started over a dozen different companies and nonprofit organizations and had courses on how to do your goals. And my guess is you're not particularly good at it yet. So what I've been doing is I read probably about 30 books a year. Sometimes, depends on how busy I am. Sometimes I read more like 50 books a year. But I've probably read over 100 books on goal setting and time management and things like that. And I've read all the, Stephen Covey and Dennis Waitley and Zig Ziglar and Napoleon Hill and, of course, Anthony Robbins. And, there's a lot of good stuff in a lot of these things, but there's some bad ideas in there as well, too. And one of the things I like so much about Tony is he likes to steal the best ideas of other people. And then he puts together a laser light show and smoke, and he's like 6'20", and he's got this booming voice, and he's more of an entertainer. Certainly more of an entertainer than I am, I suppose. But what I'm going to try to share with you, if you will, is some of the best things that these people have had to say, and some of the things that I've learned over the last, 1984, how long ago was that? 26 years. So some of the things that I've learned in the last 26 years about how to be successful. So one of the first things that the superstars talk about is the fact that you always are living in the present, right? You can't change the past, and you don't really live in the future. You live in the here and now. And so one of the things they talk about a lot is to be happy, you have to be happy doing what you're doing right here, right now, pretty much all the time. But how do you know what to do from moment to moment? Any thoughts? How do you know what you should be doing? Any thoughts on that? Yeah. What's important, what's unimportant? Yeah. What's urgent and not urgent? Yeah, that can be part of it. I'll show that little 4x4 matrix from Stephen Covey about the urgent versus important. That's certainly part of it. Yeah, but I mean, we're always confronted by choices, right? I mean, you could be here, you could be watching Family Guy. You could show up for class, you could not show up for class. You could decide, yeah, I know I'm married, but wow, this guy's looking pretty hot, I don't know. I mean, what should I be doing? Well, you think about the future, but you're living here in the present. But how do you decide what to do? What's the basis on which you make these decisions? Yeah. Instinctively, just whatever feels good? Just do whatever pops into your head? Yeah, I'm going to disagree with that. Because I think that, animals can live on instinct pretty well, but sometimes their instinct tells them, run out in front of that car, splat, oops. I guess you're not going to procreate. Human beings have something besides that, something besides instinct, something besides gut feel. Certainly Covey likes to act like gut feel is all you need to do. Close your eyes and somehow some supernatural thing will speak into you and somehow there's this instinctive urge to do good. But I think that there's something more to it than that, yeah. Ooh. Yeah, that would be nice if you had time. Yeah. So you do that all the time? Should you watch Family Guy or should you go out and do something fun?
Yeah, I think we all do. Because, for example, if I was watching Family Guy, I might have a bit more information
Yeah, right. I watch Family Guy because it's educational. That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to start having assignments in class related to that.
Or I could come here and the benefit is that I gain all this other knowledge. So I think that we all do that kind of instinctively to realize.
Yeah. I'd like to give you something more than that. I'd like to give you some better tools than, well, just kind of like, gut instinct or whatever. Well, certainly the motivational speakers talk about some things. Any other thoughts about, yeah?
Track, you build track, you make sure you're on your track for your goal. So whatever goal you have, you make sure that at this moment, am I on the track to reach my goal? So that's something you think about at the moment that can lead to your goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. We talk about goal setting, and kind of sort of you hear that you're supposed to do it, but to a large extent that's what the motivational speakers talk about, is the importance of setting goals. See, the nice thing about goals are, imagine that you're out there, you're sailing, right? Here we go. Whoa, see, I told you this thing was going to kill me. Didn't we buy a wireless one of these things? Yeah. I'll buy you a wireless one. This is going to kill somebody. Okay, yeah. That just cost me $1,000. Yeah, I know. I would never lie. Imagine you're out there trying to figure out, something simple. I want to get from Toronto to, Niagara Falls, sailing. So you're out there and you're in the middle of the Lake Ontario somewhere. And when you're in the middle of Lake Ontario, pretty much every direction looks the same. You actually can't see Niagara Falls from the middle of Lake Ontario. You look east, it kind of sort of looks the same as west. And if it's a cloudy day, you're stuck by going by your compass. But if you're going to Toronto, it's easy to find Toronto. Why would that be? Yeah, exactly. You can put anybody behind the wheel of the boat and say, see that big thing out there? Point that way. Anybody can find Toronto. Anybody. Even Miranda, who's never been on a sailboat before. There you go. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. CN Tower's that way, I'm heading in the wrong direction. You see, it's real easy to find Toronto because you've got the CN Tower. And the bigger the CN Tower is, the easier it is to head towards it. And your mind just kind of naturally guides you to drive towards the CN Tower. And that's what goals do in your life. That the big, hairy, audacious goals, the BHAG goals, the bigger goal that you've got, the easier it is to find. So you kind of know what to do. And you don't have to do this difficult cost-benefit analysis because you can say, aha, I've got some big, important goals, and I kind of know what's going to get me towards those big goals. So, but there's more to it than that. So certainly, your day-to-day actions should be based on your goals. All kinds of goals. Goals related to education, finance, health, welfare, social life, stuff like that. But where do your goals come from? They just come in a vacuum? Are they instinctual? Somehow you were born, dogs know how to lick themselves, you know how to achieve goals. What are your goals based on? Aspirations? Yeah. You know the answer to this. You're not allowed to answer. You've seen this before. You better have seen this before. Yeah.
That was probably one of the many classes.
Oh, Jesus. Can't believe you won the business plan competition. Yeah.
Good at, and people think about going into that direction, because if you're not good at something, why would you bother?
Aha. I would completely agree. Your goals should be based on stuff that you're good at. That's part of it, absolutely. So I wouldn't want to say my goal is to be the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. What do you think, Ty? Good idea? You can do anything you want, right? I can be anybody I want to be, right? Do you really think I can be the heavyweight boxing champion of the world? Dude, never lie to me. Never, ever, ever lie to me, right? Do you think I'm capable of being the heavyweight boxing champion of the world? Hell no. I mean, come on. I'm in late middle age, right? You think if I go up against one of these people you see in the ring, they'll beat me to a they'll kill me, right? It's the beauty of sports, right? Sports, they don't lie, right? At the end of the game, somebody wins and somebody loses, right? I mean, if I said I wanted to be a boxer and I went out there and I got beaten up every time, reality is going to tell me, dude, you're never going to be the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. So yes, absolutely, your goals should be based on what you're good at. So, you know, unfortunately, if mommy told you, you can be anything you want to be, maybe you can't be anything you want to be. Maybe there's some things you just can't be. It's okay. You know, maybe I didn't want to be the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. And your choices become more and more limited as you get older as well, too. But what else should your goals be based on? Yeah.
I guess your end all wants. So if you want to be successful, and success to you is money driven because you want to live a certain type of life, then that is what pushes your goal, I think. Especially after you go into the workforce, you realize, wow, I could, be an account executive for the rest of my life and be unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
I still want to live this, caliber of lifestyle. I still want to have this much money and do what I please. So how do I get there in my own terms?
Right.
So it depends on where you want to be and what makes you happy, be it financial or what have you, and that will push your goals and shape your goals. And clearly, you're going to get there by doing what it is that you do best. And if you're, really bad at it, then you'll get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you said a lot there, and so there's a lot of little pieces there. So one thing is sometimes goals can conflict with one another. So sometimes you think you want to make a bunch of money, but doing this to make a bunch of money doesn't actually make you happy. So sometimes goals conflict with one another, but they should all be based on, and I'm trying to give you a structure around this, is your values and beliefs. Should be based on your values and beliefs. And so if you say making money is important to you, okay, fair enough. But unfortunately, what tends to happen is people get into these midlife crises, or I guess at your age, you get into a quarter life crisis, right? You're like, oh, I'm 22, I haven't found myself, right? Don't worry, it'll happen again when you're 40, again when you're 50, again when you're 60. That's what I'm going to try to prevent, right? Try to prevent all these crises. So the better you can articulate what your values and beliefs are, the more you can drive goals that are in harmony with them. So if you say, well, on the one hand, I say that my spouse and my family is important to me, but on the other hand, you're working 90 hours a week, like that's a recipe for failure, right? I mean, you just can't do that. You can't say you love and value and family comes first, but on the other hand, you never see your family. You can't say I want to change the world and solve world hunger and then work 60 hours a week at, I don't know, TD Bank as a teller or something. Well, which is it, And so it's that conflict between what you end up doing, and so it's the conflict between what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and your values and beliefs that cause unhappiness. And of course, as you mentioned, all this needs to be based on reality, right? So, there's a couple of things in here where I'm a little bit different than a lot of the motivational speakers. So one of the big things that I've added onto here is this whole reality bit. See, most motivational speakers don't actually believe in reality. It all starts with values and beliefs, right? And I disagree with that. You can't necessarily do everything all at once. Sorry, Ty, you can't be a Nobel Prize winner and the heavyweight boxing champion of the world and a multimillionaire and I don't know, win the eat the most donuts a week competition, all at the same time by the time you're 23. You just can't do it. You can either cry about that or you can say, well, reality says I can't be a Nobel Prize winner, get my PhD in nuclear physics, solve world hunger all by the time I'm 23. So part of what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through this and kind of make this a little more real to you. So I'm going to go through each of these things in a bit more detail and give you some tools to use for this. But the reason why I'm doing this, and the reason why this is part of the Start Me Up track, is really, this is the thing that excites me most about entrepreneurship, is that in entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur is the business. If you're unhappy, the business is unhappy. If you can't make and keep commitments, your company can't make and keep commitments. Nobody wants to work for a boss where the boss doesn't show up on time, lies, makes commitments that he doesn't keep. Nobody wants to work for somebody like that. So in entrepreneurship, business success and personal success are so intertwined, you can't have one without the other. And so any amount of business success that you have as you're going through the Start Me Up track, and this is one reason why they asked me to give this talk relatively early on before we talk about spotting opportunities and writing a business plan and stuff like that, is, you know what, if you can't show up for class on time, like, don't bother writing a business plan, right? If you can't bother to make and keep commitments, if you can't say to your group members, yeah, I'll be at that group meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and if there's a marketing thing due at Wednesday night, I'll actually do it. Like, if you don't have that basic level of personal integrity, it doesn't matter what you want to do for a business. It's not going to work. So, I mean, this is what's so exciting about entrepreneurship, is really it's about personal success first, and then you can build business success on top of personal success. So actually, there's an identical pyramid for business. So this is true of human beings for success. And that your actions have to be based on your goals, based on your values and beliefs, and that has to be based on reality. But this is true in business as well. So does anybody have to take Biz 800, for example? You got to take Biz 800. Well, here's everything you need to know in Biz 800 in 5 seconds, right? Reality, that's chapter 2 and chapter 3. Market analysis, competitor analysis, that kind of stuff, right? So you look out at reality. Man, I'm going to kill myself on this thing. So the company, you look out at reality and you say, what do my customers need? What do my customers like? What do my competitors look like? You look in at your own strengths and weaknesses as a company. It's called core competencies, distinct competencies. It's chapter 2, 3, and 4. Based on chapters 2, 3, and 4, you build your company. We don't call it values and beliefs. If it's a company, what do we call it? Mission and vision, right? This is called mission and vision for a company. This isn't called reality. It's called market analysis, competitor analysis, strategic analysis, stuff like that. It's not called goals. What's it called for a business? Objectives, yeah. Or maybe sometimes you call it strategy or something like that. It's basically your business plan. It's your strategy. And we don't call it actions. We don't call it your day-to-day habits. What do we call it in business? Sorry? Yeah, you could call it tactics or operational management, HR management, stuff like that. So if you're reading, you still have the same textbook this year. So if this is Biz 800, strategy, chapter 3 and 4, chapter 2, chapter 5 and 6, and chapters 11 through 13. There we go. It's everything you want to know. But it's the exact same thing for a human being as it is for a business, right? So for a human being, you got to look out at reality, and you got to say, how am I different from other people? Who are the people in my life that are important to me? Businesses call them customers. You might call them friends and family or loved ones. Businesses look at themselves and say, what are we good at? Human beings do the same thing. We call these aptitudes. We call these interests, right? So before you set your goals, usually, you do a market analysis or an analysis for business. But for human beings, we take an aptitude test. So when's the last time somebody took an aptitude test? Anybody taken an aptitude test lately? You know what I'm talking about, right? Go to Google, type in aptitude test. There's 50 of them for free. Or if you're in my ENT 730 class, go to the Blackboard, and there's like 5 or 6 of them listed. And guess how I found them? I went to Google, I typed in aptitude test, and I grabbed the first 5 links. I'm like, hey, look at me. I'm a professor, right? That's all professors really do. We know how to use Google, and we actually use Google. So every skill that I'm teaching you tonight for how to be a better human being is the exact same skill for how to be a better business person. And of course, if you haven't done the aptitude test to find out if you want to be a business person or an entrepreneur, on a personal level, maybe you should do that before you go, writing a business plan and deciding, wow, is this something I really want to do? So any questions about any of this so far? Jump in at any time. What time do I have till? Till 6? Sharp cutoff at 6? There's a class right after us at 6. Ah, okay. I think I got my pony here. Moving along. Okay. So, so goals, the reason why goals are so important and why a lot of the emphasis is around goals is because goals become that tangible linchpin, that tangible, visible thing that connects where you are here on a day-to-day basis from all this important stuff that's kind of hard to articulate, right? So kind of writing down what your values and beliefs are, well, I value a roof over my head. That's nice. What do I do today? Right? So value is, I don't want to starve. I don't want to be on welfare. I don't want the government to take care of me when I'm old because I know how well that's going to go. So my goal is make $1 million. Great. But I spend every waking moment up here. So how do you get from here to here? And that's why goals become so important. So I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about goals. It's true of business. Businesses has to have good goals, but you should have good goals as well, too. And that's the tricky part. And this is what I've been working on for 26 years is, how do you write these goals down? And kind of sort of how do you have layers and layers of goals that go from the goals that smell like values and beliefs, things like, okay, I value having money. The other side of this thing, my goal is I want to have 1 million of those things. But somehow I've got to translate how do I get $1 million to what am I supposed to do today? Okay, so that's what I'm going to try to cover. And that's the tricky bit. Because it's easy to say you should have goals and write them down. They should be SMART goals, specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. Okay, go start writing. It's hard. Trust me, I've been doing this for 26 years and I'm still figuring it out. So, so the question is, what kind of goals do you want to have? Let me ask this a different way. Do you want to have high goals? Do you want to have low goals? What kind of goals do you think?
High goals.
Why?
Set the bar high, so if you do happen to underachieve, you at least fall a little away from the goal, as opposed to instead of lowering you still underachieve, you're falling under the bar a lot more.
Yeah. Shoot for the moon, because even if you miss it, you're still among the stars. Stephen Covey, was that worth $100,000? Maybe if I shaved my head, The man's cult-like, right? It's like, like you want to worship the guy or something like that, right? I can't pull it off. I'd try, believe me. My students keep me grounded. They're like, Professor Gideon, lame, dude, ain't working for you. You have little enough hair. Don't try to shave it. My students remind me where reality is. You're no Stephen Covey. It's okay. No Anthony Robbins either. But I'm happier than either of them. So let me ask this. So okay, there's been a lot of research done on this, and what they have discovered is that the thing that primarily drives performance in a business is the quality of the goals that you set for your employees. Right. So the quality of your performance is primarily driven by the quality of your goals, but also the higher the goals, the higher the performance. My God, there are people that publish papers on this. It sounds pretty obvious. The higher the goals, the higher the performance. You're laughing. This is what academics do. They come up with things like, I have a hypothesis. People like money. And then they go spend $100,000 to do a big study on, you know what? People are driven by monetary rewards. Big surprise. You knew that, right? But they've discovered some interesting things. Not only do higher goals lead to higher performance, mediocre goals lead to mediocre best. That's all I want from you. Just try your best. That's the worst performance of all. That scared the heck out of me because, of course, growing up, guess what my dad always said? What do you want for Christmas, Dad? I just want you to do your best. Oh, man, he condemned me to mediocrity. Actually, he got better at it. That was actually what he usually said was, I want A's. That was much better. I want A's. Don't just try your best. So actually, he helped me by telling me he wanted A's. So goals are important. Now, part of the reason why I put this up here is I think a lot of you have some ideas that other people have put in your heads that somehow trying to have high goals is arrogant, that somehow trying to have it all is somehow wrong, that, you know, life isn't about happiness. Life is also about pain and suffering, right? So, you know, I'm talking about success, but, you know, a number of people are like, well, success, I don't know, has almost a bad rap sometimes. So let me ask this. How much health would you like to have in your life?
How much health?
Yeah.
I don't think you can really measure health, but I want to live a long, healthy life. So 75.
Do you want a little bit of cancer in your life?
No.
No, you want perfect health.
Perfect health.
You want amazing health. You want the best possible health you can get. You don't want to compromise on health. You don't want to say, well, you know, I'm in favor of health, but not too much of that health thing because, you know, like a little bit of misery and pain and suffering and cancer is actually good, right? You don't want to compromise with health. You want the best of health. So how much success do you want in your life? You want just a little bit of success?
Oh, I want it all. I do.
Well, exactly. Like, why compromise? Why say, well, I want some success, but yeah, you know, success is overrated. I want a little bit of misery in my life, you know? You know, my parents, they're not that old, but you know what? I'd probably be a better human being if one of my parents died when I was a young kid. Like, you wouldn't wish that, right? You want the best. You want to at least try to get as much success as possible. Now, I'm not telling you what success is yet, right? So for some people, success is, I want a spouse and 2 kids and a dog and a house with a white picket fence. For some people, success is, I want to be the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. For some people, success is, I want to live in a country where they don't drag me out of the street in the middle of the night and bury me up to my neck and stone me because I was in the back seat of a car with somebody, not being married, my brother. I just want to live in a country where I'm not going to be murdered in the middle of the night. So, you know, success is something, like, who decides what your definition of success should be? Should I ask that one again? So who decides what success should mean for each of you?
Yourself.
Oh, exactly, yeah. I mean, you don't want to live up to my standards of success. You want to live up to your own standards of success. But if you want to be a good mom, like, don't settle for being a good mom. I just want to be a good mom, you know? I just, you know, maybe I beat the kids every once in a while, you know, but, you know, I don't want to be too good of a mom. You should be a great mom. You should be the best possible mom. You know, what kind of a spouse do you want? Well, I want a guy who only cheats on me every once in a while when he's in a different country, as opposed to, no, I want a spouse that never cheats on me, right? Again, the higher your expectations, the higher the performance. The higher your goals, the higher your performance. So I would submit to you, you want as much happiness as you can. You should strive to maximize your happiness. Should we have a conversation about that? Do we need to talk about that? You guys buying this? Can't quite tell. Yeah. This can be very controversial. This can be controversial, and this is again where I deviate from most of the motivational speakers. You see, somebody like Stephen Covey would say, you know what, your own happiness is not important. The only thing that matters is, here's how to decide what you should be doing. Close your eyes. Imagine you're dead. What do people say about you now that you're dead? That's the standard towards which you should strive for. Don't be selfish about your own happiness. The purpose of your life is to do good for other people. The purpose of your life is after you're dead, what do people say? See, I disagree with Covey on that point. That's probably why I don't make $100,000. I think the purpose of your life is your own happiness. I don't think the purpose of your life is other people's happiness. So I'm just pointing that out. We don't have to agree or disagree. I'm just pointing out that that's my definition of success. And that the structure of what I'm talking about is based around that. So it's okay if you disagree. A lot of people have different beliefs, but yeah.
Wouldn't there be a stand to say that you kind of want a nice balance of both in terms of success and happiness? Because I can be successful, but I cannot be happy. I may have like millions and millions of dollars, but I don't have the happiness
Yeah. You see, this is why. So I'm glad. So I'm really glad you brought this up because I think it's important to get this straight. This is why it's important that we've got our values and beliefs in here, right? Because according to me, you can't have that. Well, I'm not successful, but I'm happy. I would say if you're happy, that is success, right? Because you're defining what your values and beliefs are. You're defining what you should be doing, right? So actually, let me go ahead to this one here. So this is something all the motivational speakers agree on, is happiness comes from harmony. Happiness comes from making sure all this stuff is in alignment. So if you say money isn't important to me, and you live your life so that you don't have any of it, and somehow you find out that you're unhappy, well, wait a minute, maybe you lied to yourself. Maybe you said money wasn't important, but it really is. Right? And this is why this is an ongoing struggle. And it's easy to say, you know what I think I want to do when I grow up is I think I want to do this. And then you start doing this, you realize, you know what? That wasn't nearly as great as I thought it was. You know, I thought what I wanted to do when I grow up is to, you know, manage a company with 100 people. Until I managed a company with 100 people and realized, you know what? Man, it's way more trouble than it's worth. I'd much rather work for myself. People suck. Man, who needs employees? They're nothing but trouble. You know what? I've been there, done that. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something else that meets all my other criteria without having all the hassles associated with having a bunch of employees. Right? So sometimes you don't know. You try a little bit and you see how it works out. Maybe you think you'll be happy with no money until you try it for a little while and you realize, you know what? Maybe there's something a little more to this money thing than I gave it credit to. You know, maybe I do want a little bit more than I thought I wanted. And it's okay. I mean, but the important thing is to think through it rather than just kind of doing it on a gut level. You got to be writing this stuff down and paying attention. So you know, happiness comes from harmony between these things. The ancient Romans had this saying. It was called, there were two different types of statues. You had the perfect statue, and then you had the statue where there was a break in it or a nick or a chink or something, and they put some wax into the statue, mixed it with a little bit of dirt, and stuck the wax in there so that you couldn't actually tell that the statue was broken. And the expression was sine cera, without wax, is to live without wax. Because if you've got a sculpture, I mean, it's hard to make one of these sculptures, right? I mean, you're ticking away on your, I'm sick of this thing. You got this sculpture, you're ticking away at it, you know. You've been doing this for about 6 months, and suddenly, you lost the nose. Well, that kind of sucks. You know, it's no longer a perfect sculpture. It's a sculpture without a nose, so you stick some wax in there. But you sold your statue either, you know, with wax or sine cera, without wax. And so sine cera turned into the word sincere. So to live without wax, to be sincere. So that if you're sincere, if there's no cracks in all this stuff here, then the outcome is happiness, right? If all this is in alignment, you know what your aptitudes are, you know what you're good at, you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, you know what your values and beliefs are, and you've written them down, you're in harmony with your values and beliefs. Your goals are set to achieve these things that are important to you, then the stuff that you're doing up here, if you know the stuff that you're doing is getting you this stuff, and again, your goals are kind of sort of that lighthouse that kind of get you from here to here. I mean, the goals aren't, you know, important in and of their own. The actions are important, and this stuff is important. The goals just get you from one to the other. But if all this is in alignment, you should be happy. And you can listen to your emotions. So if you think you're doing it all right and you're not happy, do you just say, well, there's something wrong with me? Well, I know I should be happy, but, well, my emotions must be wrong, and you keep on going about your way, or do you do something else? Well, you should look into this in more detail and say, why aren't I happy? I'm doing what I said I was supposed to do. Why aren't I happy? And you should look into that, because if you're not going to do it, who is? What do you think?
I think that's a very good point, but I'm wondering, is this where you're talking sort of about self-awareness? Because what if your perception of reality is just a bit off because you're very young or you've had some sort of experience that's affected your perception of reality, which in turn has affected your goal, So is what I'm hearing you say you have to sort of step back and be more in tune with who you are and make sure that it's aligned all the way up?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of people go through the exercise and they say, well, I think I'm good at this stuff, but actually you're not as good at the stuff that you think you're good at as maybe you could be. I think this is what my values and beliefs are, but actually, you know what? I say one thing and really believe something else. And religion comes into this a lot. A lot of people say I believe in this stuff, but then they don't actually do it. So something's wrong here. Either the religion should be changed or abandoned, or you're a hypocrite. Well, which is it? You know, you say love your neighbor as yourself, but you know what? I'm walking down the street and I got this nice jacket and that guy on the street doesn't. Well, what's going on? Do you really believe love your neighbor as yourself, or do you think, well, maybe that should be modified a little bit? Gee, that's a nice sweater there. Did your wife make that sweater for you? You should take that sweater off and give it to that guy on the street, because you should really love that guy on the street exactly the same as you love your own child or your own wife. But people don't love the guy on the street the same way they love their own child. I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of weird to love some random person on the other side of the planet that you've never met, to love that person exactly the same amount as your own child. So you got to think about that. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, you're right. Some people say one thing and actually act a different way. They say they want to live like Mother Teresa, but they don't live like Mother Teresa. Well, either you shouldn't want to live like Mother Teresa, or you're a hypocrite. You should fix one or the other. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for unhappiness. You've got cracks in your soul. You've got cracks in this. And so it's tough. It's tough because most people's values and beliefs weren't put there by themselves. They were put there by other people. Most people's values and beliefs were put in there at a very young age by other people. And suddenly, you know, you move on in your life and it's busy and there's all kinds of stuff going on, and there's this thing going on, you know. You've got a perception of yourself. You're fat, you're dumb, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're lazy, you know, or there's certain religious beliefs or certain other beliefs about stuff. And maybe you kind of need to fix that before you can move on and be truly happy. My original question was, if you're unhappy, who's going to fix it for you? Well, yeah, either that or your wife, right? Isn't that what wives do? They fix you? Maybe your mommy will fix it for you. Yeah, you do, right? So the same thing is true in a business as well, too. So again, everything that I'm talking about the personal thing is, you know, again, business success is built on personal success. If you can't have personal success, don't even waste your time trying to start up a business. It's just more work than it's worth, and you'll probably end up being even more unhappy and drag a lot of other people down with you and waste a lot of money in the process. Better off to fix yourself as a human being first and then start up a business. But everything I say here as a person is true of business as well, too. You know, if you say, you know, okay, I'm Bell Canada. My mission is total customer satisfaction, but then your customers call. The customer calls, and first thing they do is say, give me your PIN. What the heck's my PIN? I don't know. Well, go on your credit card statement. Okay, 20 minutes later, I dialed in my stupid PIN, right? Then you wait on hold for an hour. Then you talk to a real person. You know, give me your account number. I don't know my frickin' account number. What? You know my name. You can send me a bill every month, okay? Why? Finally, you give me the account number. You've now been on the phone for 2 hours. Oh, this was about Bell Simpatico. Sorry, you called the wrong number. Thanks for wasting 2 hours of your life. Go call a different number now and wait there for another 2 hours. You think this is a way to achieve shareholder value for a company? When your mission statement says we're going to give total customer satisfaction and then you drag your customers around like that? This has never happened to any of you, right? Man, this is a tough crowd. Dude, I taught you how to laugh at my jokes. Help me out here. Oh, no, Rogers is perfect. Rogers is wonderful. I love Rogers. They would never treat you like Bell would treat you, or TELUS, or any of those other monstrous people. This announcement paid for. It's not a way to achieve shareholder value when you lie to your customers. You say your mission is one thing, and then you don't actually do it, you know. Windows. You say, I'm going to give you software that doesn't suck, but it crashes all the time, Anyway. So having all this in alignment is what leads to happiness. On the personal level, having all this in alignment is what achieves money on a business. So for the business, again, you got to do your market analysis, you got to do your internal strengths and weaknesses, you got to motivate your people and your staff and your customers with good vision and mission. You have strategies and objectives that help drive you there, and then you do the stuff every single day that you promise to do. And if you do all that as a business, then money, shareholder value, right? So again, the same kind of rigor of writing it all down. Now, how many of you would invest in a company that never wrote a business plan? You would?
It depends on the company. There's a lot of, what's the company? I don't think they even wrote a business plan. Groupon, fastest growing web company, set to close, $500 million this year.
And you think that they didn't write a business plan?
I don't think they did. I don't think he wrote a business plan. Didn't he go to Chicago or something, and he wanted to do music, and he just kind of fell into it, or something like? I don't think he wrote it. Did he write it?
Yeah, you're totally undercutting me here.
But a regular.
I do believe that some people just have dumb, stupid luck and make money despite their anything. But most people have to write a business plan. Most people have to have a business plan. Who invited this crazy woman over here? Let me put it this way. If you apply to the $25,000 standard broadcasting business plan competition without a business plan, you ain't going to win. Well, I don't actually have a business plan, but let me tell you what my idea is. No, crazy lady, we're not putting up with you. Right? If you apply to the Ryerson Angel Network for money and you don't have a business plan, we're going to say, if nothing else, you have to at least be able to explain it to somebody. Even if it's not written down, you have to at least know what the heck you're doing, right? So the same thing is true for a person. You want to go through your life without any plans? Well, living on instinct? Hoping it just somehow works out, checking the astrological forecast. Oh my God, today I thought I was going to do this thing, but my astrological forecast tells me something else. Right? Here's one. Oh man, I went to a club the other day. I'll look at you. I went to a club the other day. I'm not going to pick on Josie. Man, I was at this club the other day. I ran into this guy. Oh, he was so cute. Tight buns and, oh, he was so gorgeous. We got along so well. We've got all the same interests, but he's a Capricorn. I'm a Virgo. I'll never be happy. It's never going to work out. Okay. Didn't mean to wig you out there or anything like that. Just giving you an example. Okay. So I talked about this already. Sincere, living without wax. Don't set yourself up for a midlife crisis. Happens all the time. People go through their life just kind of sort of doing whatever they stumble across, and suddenly they wake up one day and they say, I'm not happy. I'm not happy. And then they do crazy things. They divorce their spouse, buy a Ferrari, buy a football team. I don't know, other stupid. Oh, sorry, a hockey team, right? Sorry, Jim. Don't set yourself up for a problem down the road. Think through how to live your life now. Have a business plan for yourself now. Ultimately, it's about taking charge, conscious charge of your own life. This is one of the big differences. I shouldn't say this is the big difference between childhood and adulthood. As a child, you live the life that other people tell you to live. You go to class when they tell you to go to class. You take the courses they tell you to take. You show up for dinner when mommy and daddy tell you when dinner is. You believe what your mommy and daddy and other people tell you to do. Basically, you're living under your parents' roof. You follow your parents' laws, and you're in class. Okay, you want a degree in what? Well, you got to take this class. You got to take this class. You got to take this one before this one. If you take this one, you can't take that one. You can't take these at the same time. We tell you what to read, when to read it by. What is going to be on the exam. We give you positive, nurturing feedback, encouragement, and support. We have to give you respect because we're graded on whether we give you respect or not. But suddenly one day, you're out the other end, you've graduated, and suddenly you're in charge of your own curriculum. You don't read the textbooks that some stupid prof told you to read. You read the books that you choose to read. You don't believe what mommy and daddy told you to believe. You believe what you have chosen as an adult to believe. You don't do whatever job you happen to stumble across. You do the job that you choose to do. So happiness is really about being proactive on all these things. You know, take time to figure out what you're good at. Take time to figure out what your values and beliefs are. Take time to write down what your goals are. And the first time you write down your goals, they're probably not going to be very good goals. And then you're going to look at them and go, I don't know, what the heck did I write this down for? I don't know, it must have been after New Year's and I was drunk at the time or something like that. I don't like that goal. Here's a different goal. And you're going to change your goals. And you're going to realize this goal doesn't get me anywhere. Or you'll realize, you know what, I've had the same goal every year for 5 years and I'm still not doing that goal. Maybe it's time to change that goal or get rid of that goal completely. Maybe it's time to just, I don't know, decide that, I didn't really want to learn French after all. Okay, fair enough. I'm just going to get rid of that goal. But you have to take a proactive approach to this, and this is true in business as well, too. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of sort of go out there and sell whatever people are buying. Good luck. I'm going to take a proactive charge of this. Okay, any questions on any of this stuff? Opinions, thoughts? Yeah.
What are your thoughts on gold and money? Because one thing that you mentioned was having very high...
Touch you if you've got a goal of more than $100 million a year in revenue, okay? Maybe 50 million, but if your business plan doesn't call to hit 50 million, then don't even waste your time talking to people about money, because that's kind of the first, what investors normally do is, I get a couple hundred business plans a year, and I don't have time to read every business plan, and so what you do is you screen, right? So it's the same way, imagine you're dating, You might have certain screening questions when you're dating, I'm not going to give you any examples, but you can imagine what some screening questions might be where you can say, you know what, I can say no to this person just like that. 3 strikes, you're out kind of thing. Same thing is true of a business. So if I'm looking at an investment in your company and you're not planning to do at least 50 million a year in revenue, I'm not even going to return your phone call. It's just not interesting enough for me. Part of the reason for that is because out of every 10 investments, maybe 2 will be successful. So if you're only planning to do 5 million a year, and everybody's planning to do 5 million a year, well, only 2 of you are going to be successful. So even if those 2 are successful at doing 5 million a year, that's not worthwhile to me as an investor. So to some extent, if you're looking for money, it's got to be a certain level. I'm not sure if that completely answers your question, though. So, well, one of the things that always breaks my heart is when I see students write a business plan that basically says something like this. We're going to work for 5 years like dogs. Okay, forget about that. Dogs don't actually work. They lay around, they sleep, lick themselves, right? Don't work like dogs. For 5 years, we're going to work like hardworking people. I'm going to live in mommy's basement. We're not going to make anything. And if all goes well according to plan, after 5 years, we're each going to make $10,000 apiece. Breaks my heart. My answer is go work at McDonald's, please. Don't annoy your mom. What, if you're successful, you make $10,000 a year? That's not success. That's not even half of the poverty level. The poverty level in Canada is defined as $24,000 a year. Most of you are probably thinking, $24,000 a year? Yeah! Where do I get me some of that poverty? When I was your age, I was selling my blood for beer money, and I was living the life of Riley. I'm like, this is great. Life was good when I was 20 years. You like this? Yeah, this is what I did for money, right? You go, they take the blood out of here. They take the blood. You never heard about this? They take your blood, they spin it. Back then, a case of beer was $5, right? So How we get it? Money, right. 10,000 might seem like a lot now, but 10,000 isn't going to get you very far. So I would say add a zero onto everything and try to build a business that at least gives you 50,000, 100,000. Because that way, again, even if you fail, okay, I'm not making 50,000, I'm making 40,000. At least you can eat on 40,000. 20,000, good luck getting a date if she finds out you've only got 20,000 a year. Nobody laughed at that one. Okay, sorry. You laughed at me giving my blood for money. You thought that was funny. And you had to register with all the other blood places, because otherwise what the students would do is go give blood here, then go give blood there, then go give blood there. You look like Keith Richards after a week, Did you have a question, Jay?
No, I was kind of like adding on to that point. It's kind of relative to where your goal is. So say if your goal is to make I want my business to make 10 million and I make 300,000. I guess in terms of the business side of my life, I'm not going to be happy. But if my goals are realistic or based on reality, and my goal for my business is, within this year to do 300,000 in sales,
Mm-hmm.
hit 250 or 280, I'm going to feel happy and know that I'm on the right track to success based on my goals,
Right.
based on reality.
It's important to have reality work into this, because you can have all kinds of crazy goals and then set yourself up to be unhappy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you set up a goal that you can't achieve, then you're just a bad goal setter. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about reality here first. How many people in this room already have over $1 million in a bank account somewhere? Nice try. Maybe I should ask, how many people plan on marrying somebody who's going to have more than $1 million? Yeah, we got a gigolo over here, over there. Yeah, the women are going, not with that beard, dude. Reality demands you got to work to earn a living. So you have two choices. You can either stamp your foot at reality and whine about it. Life isn't fair. I shouldn't have to work. The government should give it to me. I have a right to whatever I feel like I've got a right to. Why not? I got a right to free health care and free education. I want free food and a job. Why? What the hell? Getting the rights line up here, and what else can I get for free for nothing? Right? Doesn't work out very well for you. Reality demands you got to work to earn a living. Just the way it is. I didn't make the rules, but this is just the way it works. Reality demands, it's, you gotta do stuff that you can only become great at the stuff that you're good at, right? Reality demands I'm never going to be a heavyweight boxing champion. I can whine about that, or I can just accept that fact of reality. Personally, I think it's easier to just accept that fact of reality and move on. Reality demands you get out what you put in. Yeah, we love to read the paper about the guy who won the gazillion-dollar lottery and the one person who stumbled across an idea and didn't have a business plan, and but by and large, those are one in a gazillion. By and large, reality demands you get out what you put in. Does anybody disagree with that? A lot of people live their lives like that's not true, though. I mean, certainly a lot of students live their lives like it's not really that you get out what you put in. Really, it's about how much can I slacken? How much can I be a lousy student? What can I get away with? Can I do the assignment the morning that it's due, handwritten, and still manage to pass the class? Maybe I can get into a group with some smart people and slack my way into letting them get a good group grade for me. Certainly a lot of students don't act like they believe you get out what you put in. But that's the way it is. That's certainly true in business. So, there's kind of this lie of entrepreneurship that, we show you the Jim Basilis of the world, who farts $1 million bills and, has got nothing better to do than to try to buy a hockey team and stuff like that. But, there's only one rim. There's only one rim in Canada. And guess how many other people thought that they had the next rim? Hundreds of people thought that they were going to be the next rim. but only one company managed to be the next rim. But of course, we read stories about Jim Basile all the time, so we think that it's easy to be like him, but it's not. And so, reality demands that if your business is going to be successful, you got to work really hard. Not like a dog working, but like real people working. So that's just an important thing to realize when you're doing this. You don't get something for nothing. You can whine about that, or you can say, well, actually, you know what? The harder it is for me to be successful at business, the harder it's going to be for my competitors to compete against me. So all those obstacles that I had to come are walls to keep those other people out. So the harder it is to be successful, once you get to be successful, the harder it is for other people to take it away from you. So every time you come up against a problem, you can whine about it, or you can say, that's okay, because you know what, if I figure this one out, if I get through this one, you know what, there's going to be somebody without my drive, without my ambition, without my good looks, without my intelligence, that they're going to see that wall and they're going to stop at that wall. The other problem is you can't have it all right away. You got to balance your short-term and your long-term goals. It's hard to say, I want to get married, be the perfect dad, have 5 kids, start up a multi-million-dollar business and win the Nobel Prize by the time I'm 30. Sometimes you have to balance things. Sometimes you have to say, okay, I'm going to kind of sort of give up on this one thing here in order to be able to achieve this other thing instead. And you got to know when you're doing that. Because otherwise, if you say one thing and you do something else, you're going to end up being unhappy. So it's just important to realize, and this is another important thing that goals let you do, is if you sit down and you list all your goals, and then you realize, oh my God, I've got too many goals. That's a problem as well too. So for 1 year, one of my goals was to have fewer goals. It's true. This is how anal retentive I am about goal setting. I had a goal 1 year to watch more television. I had a goal 1 year to take more naps. So, it's okay to realize that you can't have it all right away, and that's part of the reason for having goals, is to kind of sort of figure out, something's got to give here. I can't do all of this. Maybe this isn't the year to start up a new business. Maybe this is the year where I, build better networks and maybe get some domain expertise. Maybe this is the year I get hired by somebody who might be my competitor down the road so I can make all my mistakes on their money. Maybe I'll start up my business afterwards or something. And that's all okay. You're all very young. There's lots of time left. So it's not like, it all has to happen right away. And if it doesn't all happen right away, suddenly, you're a failure because you read the newspaper article about the 22-year-old whiz kid that already had 3 companies and yeah, sure. Right? Usually your values and beliefs are held in the left side of the brain is the right hand, seat of reason and logic and things that you articulate. The right side of your brain is your left hand, that's the artsy-fartsy stuff and the creative thing. Usually your values and beliefs are held subconsciously in the right side of your brain. And very often, unless you've been through psychotherapy or your spouse is a shrink or something like that, or you've gone through specific formalized counseling of some sort, usually most people aren't very good at knowing what your beliefs really are. Or even worse, you say one thing but actually believe something different. And very often these beliefs are held in short little statements that you might not know that you believe, but yet this is kind of sort of how you face life anyway. So I put some things up here. So one might be, my life is important. Or maybe you think, my life isn't important. Maybe you think that the purpose of your life is to blow yourself up for the greater glory of some cause. Maybe you think, well, other people's lives are important, but my life isn't particularly important. Maybe you believe what other people think of me is important. Or maybe you think, well, actually, I'm pretty good with some people thinking I'm a crazy, entrepreneur with stupid ideas, and I'm okay with that. And sometimes it's very hard for you to know what your beliefs actually are. Here's a good one. I deserve to be happy. A lot of people don't actually believe that they deserve to be happy. What right do you have to be happy? There's somebody starving on the other side of the planet. Who the hell do you think you are to be happy? How can you be happy while there's pain and suffering in the world? You don't have to answer that. It's okay, Nicholas. It's like, am I supposed to say something? I just want to be happy, But there's other ones, I'm stupid, lazy, ugly, stuff like that. Very often, these are thoughts put in there by other people. It could be boys and girls in the schoolyard making fun of your name, making fun of the color of your skin, making fun of whether you're a female or a male. I mean, it's bad enough if somebody was bigoted or prejudiced and said stupid, rotten things to you, but don't let it get through your skin to take it in to make you change who you feel about yourself. If you've been exposed to stupid, blonde jokes, it's one thing for some idiot to say a stupid blonde joke, but don't let it get through. Okay, I'm looking at somebody who's more blonde. There you go. It's one thing for somebody to it's bad enough that somebody made a nasty stereotype, but it's worse if you let it get into your head and let it define who you are as a person, right? So, people make fun of your name, they made fun of my name, Steve, when I was a little kid, they made fun of the name Steve. Now, as an adult, how do you make fun of the name Steve? I can only imagine half of you, they probably made terrible fun of your name, right? Well, it's bad enough that they did it, but it's worse if you let it change how you feel about yourself or how you feel about other people. But yet all of these things that people might have stuck into your head, it affects how you view yourself and how you relate to other people. So when somebody says, so tell me about what your company does, are you able to look them in the eye with pride and good body posture and say, well, let me tell you what an amazingly great company that I've got and how I'm going to solve your problems. And people can tell from your body language, from your eye contact, from your posture, whether you really believe in yourself and whether you really believe that you can convey this to them. Or do you say, well, I've got this company, and it's probably a lousy idea, but let me tell you what it is, and it's like this thing that, and so how you feel about yourself says a lot about how you portray yourself to other people. And the good news is you can change how you feel about yourself. I think there was a couple years where Tony Robbins called it neuro-linguistic programming to give it some fancy name. But there's stuff that you can do, and I think I'm going to get there. You've been such a good, quiet audience. No one's disagreeing with me about happiness and stuff like that. That I'm going to try to get to this. But so for every link on here, there's something you can do to fix it, right? There's something you can do to make it better. So maybe you don't know what your values and beliefs are, and you're sitting there thinking, geez, I'm not sure if I believe I should be happy or not. I know I consciously think that I should be happy, but subconsciously, do I really believe that I should be happy? You may not know. My guess is half of you don't have a freaking clue what you really feel about these things. It's okay, because you can rewrite the things that you want to believe. You can rewrite this. And this is one of our actions that we're going to talk about. So, the trouble is, there's a lot of rotten ideas out there. There's a lot of toxic attitudes that are constantly bombarding you. So I'm going to apologize for this in advance, but I'm going to expose you to some of the stuff that you're exposed to every day. Right? You walk down the street, you see people with t-shirts like this, right? Or buttons that say this kind of stuff, or ha ha ha, look at me, aren't I cute and funny, I've got a shirt that says F-U-C-K. Oh no, that's F-C-U-K, ha ha. Right, wasn't that clever? You just exposed me to a nasty 4-letter word, but ha ha, you switched 2 letters, that's really clever. But it's exposing you to some negative thoughts, right? Or being exposed to, okay, I'm gonna move on, you guys didn't need that. Or exposing yourself to horror movies and things like that, don't you just love waking up in the middle of the night, ah, monsters! Yeah, that was good for you. That was good. I used to watch horror movies all the time. And then I realized, you know what, do I really want that going on in there? I paid 13 bucks to wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. I could have happy thoughts, but no, I'd much rather have axe murderers. So I don't watch horror movies anymore, much less pay money to see these things. Life is tough enough. You know, read the newspaper, right? Rob Ford running for mayor. Sorry. I'm neither for or against anybody. Actually, there's probably some people I'm against. So the question is, what are your core beliefs, and do you actually agree with all of them? Do you even know what they are, or are there things that other people stuck into your head? Because they affect the way that you convey yourself to other people. They show up in outward manifestations. They show up in whether you're happy or not. They show up in whether you're living in accordance with them or whether you're not living in accordance with them. This is part of that wax, right? If you know, as a child, other people put all these thoughts into there, but as an adult, you've got to take conscious control over them. But of course, because you believe them to be true, you act as if they're true. Okay, goals. Okay, I'm going to skip by that. You want me to cover that? Oh, you want me to cover that? Okay, man. Okay, goals. So I already mentioned that when I was your age, actually, I was probably older than you, 24. Yeah, so I was 24 years old. And, you know, I'm selling my blood for money. You know, my dad was a steel worker. I think my salary, you know, when I finally got a job was $823 a month or something like that. And I thought I was living a pretty good life. But I started working on my goals. And one of the goals I had was someday I'm going to have a big boat that I can live aboard. And, you know, what the specific goal wasn't really important at the time. But that goal was kind of a lighthouse that kind of sort of, or like the CN Tower, that kind of drove me towards doing the types of things that just might get me there. I didn't have, I'm going to have this kind of a boat by this year and da-da-da-da-da. It wasn't articulated like that. It was more of a, I'm going to have the kind of a lifestyle that's going to allow me to drop $250,000 on a boat someday. And that led me to certain decisions about who to marry or not, about whether to have children or not, about whether to pursue my education or not, about whether to take a year and go tour in a band in Europe with a bunch of crazy people, or whether to say, you know what, actually I'm not that good. It's really all about the drunken craziness. It's not actually about being any good at being in a rock and roll band, and maybe I should go and get a degree instead. And I know I lamed out and went to MIT instead, but but it led to certain decisions in my life. And as time went on, I started making more steps towards this, right? You know, if you buy a big boat someday, no one's going to insure it if you don't know how to fix the darn thing, right? They won't let you into a yacht club if you don't have the cool duds to go along with it, right? You can laugh at that. It's okay. I'm not going to look at you if you're not going to laugh. You'll laugh at me. Never mind. She's like, I'm not laughing. Don't you dare. So this is my boat. So it's a 40-foot sailboat, sleeps 7, 2 bathrooms. You know, I was CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, and my mom's saying, when are you going to get a real job? And I say, Mom, my boat has more bathrooms than my house, than the house that than your house. Doesn't matter if you're writing the checks, it's not a real job. You know, now that I work for a university, I'm a unionized government employee, that's a real job, she loves me again. Now she brags about my son, the professor. You know, CEO of a company where I can buy a 40-foot boat, that's not a real job to my mom. So I finally bought the boat. But the important thing is sometimes the goal isn't so important as to what it specifically is, as to the actions that it leads you to believe are possible. Yeah?
Well, I was thinking like the audacity goal that you went to, the audacity goal to get the boat. Once you reach that goal, how do you reassess and then make another goal? Because if we say my goal is to get $1 million, that's my goal. I'm going to go to school, business, I get $1 million. Now what? There have been so many cases
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't anything beyond just becoming president.
Elvis Presley, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, they finally hit the top of success, blow their brains out, right? Happens all the time. People have this goal that they try to aspire to. They finally hit it and they realize this wasn't ever my goal. You know, they've been climbing the ladder, climbing the ladder, climbing the ladder. They get to the top of the ladder, ladder's on the wrong house. Good job, you climbed the wrong ladder. You know, you need to put the ladder someplace else. Well, that's one reason why what I'm going to talk about now is having not just one goal, but having multiple goals in different areas. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. First of all, it's okay to change your goals. It's okay to say, well, I achieved this, now I want to do something else. So for myself personally, you know, this happened, and I said, okay, now what? And part of what I realized, being a CEO was going to put me into an early grave. I'm in my 40s, and I got the eye tick thing going on. No, I'm not making a pass at you. I'm like, I've just got this thing going on, right? And, you know, go to my doctor. My doctor says, well, first of all, eat more bran. You need more fiber in your diet. You never know what gems of wisdom you're going to get here. The other thing was you got to quit your job. It's killing you. It's absolutely killing you. And so I didn't know if I was going to like being a professor or not. So I had a goal one year, figure out whether I want to be a professor or not. It's my only goal the whole year was figure it out. And so that goal led to, well, you know, where would you like to be a professor? What would you like to be a professor of? ITM, entrepreneurship, engineering. I got a PhD in engineering. Could be an engineering prof. Which university? Do I want to go to U of T, Ryerson, US school? You know, where do you want to go? And do you like students? I've never been a prof before. Maybe it turns out I wouldn't like it. Maybe it would just be public speaking would be too terrifying. Maybe I wouldn't be any good at it. You know, maybe the salary would suck. You know, you just don't know. And so it took me a year or so to kind of go, yeah, I think that this is kind of where I want to go. And so now, you know, my goals have nothing to do with making a lot of money. My goals all have to do with stuff related to my life as a professor. So my goals today have almost no resemblance at all to my goals from 10 years ago. Almost none. Yeah.
It's always mentioned about how you should revisit your goals, but have you revisited your visions and kind of the values?
Oh, all the time. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, all the time. Yeah, definitely. I'll talk about that later. I'll get to that. So, okay. So, you know, I don't want to spend too much time on this. You know, you can't imagine starting up a business, except for some of you who can. You can't imagine starting up a business without a business plan. Most people can't. But, you know, the sad fact is that most Canadians spend more time planning their summer vacation than they do planning their lives. I'm going to Cuba this year. Yay! You know, 3 years from now, you know, what did you do 3 years ago? I don't even remember. I don't know, some island someplace, you know, I don't know. Sat around, got drunk on a white beach somewhere. Could have been Cuba, could have been Jamaica. God only knows where the heck it was. You know, but they spend more time planning a trip to Cuba than planning their lives. Well, that's a recipe for failure. That's a recipe for being unhappy. That's a recipe for having wax holding things over. It's a recipe for a midlife crisis. So the well-balanced life is to have goals in all kinds of areas in your life. And I have to laugh because, you know, if you watch this videotape from 3 years ago, I used to talk about Tiger Woods here and say Tiger Woods is the world's greatest golfer, right? He's great. And so on the career thing, he is the world's best golfer. But I have no idea if he's a good dad. I have no idea if he's a good husband. I just thought it was the funny thing, like, oh boy, was that prophetic. I'm serious, go watch it. 3 years ago, I talked about Tiger Woods, but is he a well-balanced human being? Like, you know, it's one thing to be a great golfer, but is he a great human being? And so, you know, yes, being a great business person, having a great company is one area of this. But the problem is, and again, this is this tight integration between being a great human being and being a great entrepreneur. If you're unhappy, your business is unhappy. If you've got problems at home, your business has problems. If you can't show up on time for a meeting, your employees aren't going to be showing up on time. If you don't make and keep commitments, your employees aren't going to make and keep commitments. And so you can't have business success without personal success. And human beings, again, I didn't make this up. Reality demands human beings are multifaceted. That if you only focus on the money, Nahal, and you're not paying attention to your health, there's going to be a reckoning. And someday you're going to be laying on your deathbed going, oh, I wasted all my time on money when I was, too late I realized, Nobody on their deathbed says, gee, I wish I'd worked more. Right? Most people talk about, family and friends and stuff like that. The regrets that they have tend to be around those kind of dimensions. So successful human beings are successful at multiple things. And you'll all be a little different. And there were times in my life when I really focused really heavily on certain things, where my wife was living in Toronto, Canada, and I was living in Baltimore, Massachusetts. Baltimore, Maryland. I don't even know where I was living. I was living on a boat. I don't know. We made the conscious effort. I'm going to put some elements of my life to the side to focus on other elements. And, eventually sailed the boat back to be with my wife again. And so you should have goals related to all of these activities here. So one of the problems with goals, though, and so I'm not going to do the workshop here, and we don't have time, but I'm going to strongly suggest that, over the next couple of days, write down your goals. And then look at them very carefully. So write down your goals in all these different areas. But look at having short-term goals as well as long-term goals. Look at having goals that kind of sort of smell like values and beliefs. And look at goals that start to smell like a daily to-do list. Right? Because if you can get the big goals to transform into today's to-do list, that's the perfect kind of family of goals. Right? So the goal is figure out whether I want to be a prof or not. What do I do today about that? Well, I could give my buddy James Norrie a phone call and say, hey, buddy, let me buy you coffee. And hope that he remembers my name and answers his call and actually goes out to coffee with me so I can go and have a conversation with him about it. What else can I put on today's to-do list? Go buy a book written by a prof that I like or something. I don't know. Call my old prof and ask him something like that. So what can you put on your to-do list today that drives towards that long-term goal? And so you kind of think of it as a family of goals. Think of it as, you got this multi-year goal, that's the CN Tower, but then there's a bunch of, markers along the way. Well, here's what I want to do within this next month. Here's what I want to do there. And surprisingly enough, if you do that, especially as a student, this is important, it suddenly becomes blindingly obvious why you should show up for class, why you should read the assignment before you do the assignment, why you should read the chapter before the prof talks about it, why you should show up for class on time rather than not showing up at all. All those little things that students tend to have a hard time doing, if you tie it to your goal, it suddenly, A, becomes easier to actually do all those things that you know are good for you. Yeah?
I was just wondering, what do you do when you have too many goals set and you can't prioritize? Like, you can't just get rid of a goal. What do you do with that?
Aha, I'm going to get to that. I don't know if I'm going to get to that or not. I'm going to try to get to that. But that's an excellent question. I want to get to that in the right context. So let's see. I'm going to move on here. Ideally, you'd like something that's smart, specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. I think I'm not going to spend much time on this because there's some other stuff I'd like to at least expose you to. And then, who knows, maybe Seif will invite me back for, second half or something like that. But, again, if you think of that pyramid, very often you've got goals, and the easy ones that most of you have are things like, I want to have $1 million, or, well, more than that, by the time you're my age. I want to have at least $3 million in the bank, free and clear, not including my principal residence, by the time I'm 65 years old, so that I can retire in peace and prosperity, right? Trouble is, with that, well, it's pretty specific, it's measurable, but it's not action-oriented. What do I do today to get me that $3 million? I don't even know if it's realistic yet. Well, it's timely. I said it's by the time I'm 65. So the kind of sort of vague goals are the ones that kind of are more like values. Not the subconscious values, but the articulated values that sit on top of your subconscious values. And the more specific and measurable and action-oriented you can make them, the more they start to look like to-do lists. And then it becomes a matter of time management. So for the guy with the Macintosh computer there, it becomes a matter of time management. I'm going to try to get to that. So, So let me just kind of go back to this other thing for a second. So there's a gradient between all of these things here, right? So goals that are down here are kind of sort of the big vague things. Maybe you can think of them as BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. The goals that are up here start to look a little bit more like to-do list things. The values that are down here and beliefs down here are kind of sort of those subconscious things in your right brain. The values and beliefs up here are more like an articulated philosophy, or in some people's case, I guess you'd call it a religion, So I know what an articulated belief is, but what about the subconscious beliefs under it? So there's this hierarchy of stuff, and there's kind of a gradient. The same thing is true of actions. So the action up here is the stuff that you're doing right here, right now at the day-to-day moment. But the actions here are what somebody like Stephen Covey would call a habit. So you want to breed good habits. So what I'm going to talk about now then are these success skills. I call them success skills because I don't want to steal habits from Covey, basically. But habits is a good way to call them. So where were we? So of course, the first time I did this, I swore it was not going to be 10 habits, or it wasn't going to be 7 habits or whatever. And of course, I went and I stole all the best ones from everybody, and guess they came out to 10, right? So then I cut them to something else, and they ended up at 7. Sorry, I apologize for that. But here's my 7 habits or key success skills. And the first 3 specifically relate to reality, values and beliefs, and goals. So I'm going to try to cover at least those 3 before getting to the other ones. So let's look at reality-based self-esteem first. So you've got a little thing here. So this is making sure that your self-esteem has a basis in reality. Now, this is partially a problem, especially for the younger generation. And there's been tremendous amounts of research done on this. But about the time that you were, probably just before the time when most of you were starting to enter grade school, this whole psychological self-esteem movement became really popular. And psychologists and then teachers started to believe that it was a student's self-esteem was more important than whether a student actually learned anything or not. And so we had all these things like, everybody's the most valuable player on the soccer team, right? Doesn't matter that you stood around and you forgot your shoes and actually you don't even know how to play soccer, and whenever you did touch the ball, you knocked it out of bounds, you're still the most valuable player. So what if somebody else scored all the goals and you're actually the worst player on the team? What does that do? What does that do to your self-esteem when people lie to you like that and say, oh, no, really you're the most valuable player? Yeah.
Your self-esteem is based on a lie. So if the foundation that you would have from actually creating realistic goals or making realistic actions that actually help build your self-esteem would actually build on a lie.
Yeah. Well, it also makes you deeply cynical. Like, what's the point of even trying? Why should I try to be the best soccer player if I can be the most valuable player when I'm actually not paying any attention? Why should I work hard on an assignment when I know I'm going to pass even if I barf out a piece of poo on a page, right? Why should I bother to do a spell check if I know darn well that the kid next to me is totally illiterate, right? It makes you deeply cynical. I mean, I can see you laughing, right? You're with me on this. Do you actually like professors where you turned in something that you know is garbage and they give you an A on it or a B on it? Really? Oh, okay.
No, it's been like okay, so-so, but
you know whether you've done your best or not. And how do you feel when you know that you did substandard work and you still got a good grade on it?
I'd imagine I feel pretty, me, I feel terrible a little bit because I got cheated out.
Yeah, or I got away with something. Or I don't respect this class anyway. Why should I pay attention in class? Because this prof really can't judge good from bad. Like, this guy's a clown, right? You know, I could throw out any old thing and still get a good grade. You're nodding your heads. This has happened to you, right? I mean, I was in university. I know what it's like. It makes you deeply cynical. You know, unless people can say these are the standards, and you know what? You didn't live up to the standards. It's okay. You're still a wonderful person. I still love you, but you know what? You didn't do it. You just didn't do it, you know? You're playing a musical instrument, but all your notes are wrong. You know, you're in a choir, but you can't sing, you know? So unfortunately, you know, there was this whole self-esteem movement that I think really infected the younger generation. And there's this, I don't know, just kind of sort of out there in the culture as well. There's this whole concept of unconditional love. You know, you should love everybody equally, or, you know, stand by your man, you know, that kind of stuff, you know. Children, little children need unconditional love. Little children need to know that daddy will always love them. If your husband beats you, dump the jerk. Have him thrown in jail, right? Don't give unconditional love to a guy that beats you. That's just wrong, right? If somebody goes out there and murders people on the street, lock them up. Put them away from society. You know, this whole unconditional love culture and, you know, oh, everybody's special, everybody's good. No, some people are bad, right? And you got to be able to judge the difference. But you got to be able to judge it in yourself as well, too. So true self-esteem is based on reality, a rational basis of lasting self-esteem. And there's this virtuous cycle that takes place. So you say something like, I'm going to exercise more often. You go and do some exercise. Your self-esteem goes up. Hey, I said I was going to do something, I did it. I'm not so bad at this thing. Maybe I'll exercise some more. You go and you exercise, you're like, I'm getting good at this exercise thing. And that's how real self-esteem is based, a little bit at a time. You take something on, you do it again. You make yourself a promise. I'm not going to just say to somebody, yeah, let's do lunch, if I don't mean let's do lunch. If it means I don't really want to see you ever again, I'm not going to call you or send you it. Like, don't lie to yourself and to them. Yeah, let's do lunch. You know, she's never going to see this. I was out the other night, and somebody's like, oh, send me an email, we'll get together. And I said, no, I'm not going to send you an email. We're not going to get together. Who are you kidding? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to lie to you acting like I'm going to send, you know, why? Is there a reason for us together? Is there an agenda, or you just want to get together? Are you hitting up on me? What's going on here? Like, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
I have a question about, in the beginning, how you're talking about reality.
Mm-hmm.
Being a champion boxer, right? So if you're building your self-esteem by achieving little pieces that goal,
Yep.
weekly, whatever it may be, how are you supposed to build that self-esteem right from the get-go? If I'm 5 years old, or not 5, I'm 12, 15, and say I want to be a championship boxer. So Mike Tyson was the youngest championship boxer of all time.
Right.
That's not reality. At the time, no one can think a 20-year-old would be a championship boxer, but every day he was getting better and better. There's a disconnect between a really super crazy, audacious goal and the reality that currently exists in society.
So what exactly is your question?
So if you want to become that
Mm-hmm.
very big, crazy thing, how do you do so if it's out of reality, sort of thing?
Well, you can say, look, you know, I've got this BHAG that I may or may not achieve. You know, I want this big old boat, right? I don't know if I'm going to be able to get there or not. I'm a poor kid. What do I know? You know, but I'm going to set that out there. Maybe I'll get there, maybe I won't. But what am I going to do today that helps get me on the right track? Well, one of the things I can do today is decide, you know what, I'm not going to be a singer in a rock and roll band where I actually, like Zeppelin is totally out of my vocal range. So, like, instead I'm going to go to MIT. Because going to MIT probably has a higher likelihood of getting me to that boat. So will I pass at MIT? I don't know, but I'll do the best I can. Actually, that was a bad way to phrase it. I'm going to work really hard and not like a dog to do well at MIT. And you know, as you get closer and closer to it, you'll know whether that goal is realistic or not. You know, so maybe at a certain point in time you say, you know what, I don't think I'm going to be the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Maybe I need to lose 20 pounds and try to be the welterweight champion. Actually, I don't know the difference between a welterweight and a heavyweight, but you get my point. So, you know, part of the reason for putting that goal out there is to give you something to strive towards. But then you got to also make it realistic along the way. So, for example, if Mike Tyson had, you know, broken both of his wrists, you know, but a car accident or something like that, you know, maybe he couldn't have done that anymore. Maybe his dream would have been shattered, and he would have had to have come up with a new dream. You know, maybe the new dream is I want to inspire kids to beat each other senseless in a boxing ring, because it's, you know, it's good to beat other people up in a boxing ring, and so I want to go around teaching people to beat up each other in a boxing ring. Maybe that's what I want to do, is to inspire kids to do that, because I broke both of my wrists. I mean, sometimes there's stuff beyond your control, you know? So does that kind of help? So part of this is again, it's one thing to have the big dream. It's another thing to take concrete steps that give you the self-esteem required to get there. Because good self-esteem is not based on just, you know, telling yourself in the mirror, oh, I'm wonderful, I'm great, because you know if you're a liar. It's taking concrete day-to-day steps that get you there. So this is how I'm kind of sort of tying reality and self-esteem to the goals, like making those individual steps. Okay. You got to earn your own respect, basically. Okay. I'm going to try to cover the next two quickly, and then, or should I leave it open for questions now? What do you think? Who's in charge around here? Try to cover the next two?
Well, I think we should do a second half. Like a second.
We can always take a vote afterwards behind my back, because my self-esteem would be crushed if I thought you didn't want to see more of me. So creative visualization. So this one is based on, this is based on the second part of the pyramid. This is your values, right? So this is the fact that most of you probably have values and beliefs that either you don't know about, haven't articulated properly, or maybe you want to re-articulate some of your values and beliefs. So this is what Anthony Robbins and other people might call neurolinguistic programming, basically. But the idea is you are what you think, say, and believe about yourself, you know, your own self-image. Your mind has this thing called the reticular activating system, which is your filter for information. So again, you know, most negative beliefs and values are stored in your right brain, okay? But the thing is, human beings are really, really good at signal-to-noise ratio stuff, right? So here's my engineering geek side coming out. So, you know, you're driving down the highway, and you forgot to change your windshield wipers before winter hits. You got slush on it. The windshields are going back and forth. Snow's coming down. You really can't see anything out of these windshields, right? We live in Canada, right? You're driving down the road, but somehow you can manage to stay on the road. Even though you've got this thing going, there's a kid screaming in the back seat, the music's blaring, probably talking on the phone, can't see out the bloody window, but you manage to stay on the road. Here's another one. We're in a nightclub. Some gorgeous woman is going to give you her phone number, right? Yeah, lucky you. You know, 50 Cent's blasting out at, you know, 96 decibels, and she's whispering at 10 decibels. But boy, you got that number, and you write it down. You can differentiate what she's saying over the noise, right? Be careful what you pay attention to. Be careful what you pay attention to. And most people's reticular activating system is set on, I tend to hear the bad stuff. I mean, I'll tell you, this has happened to me 1,000 times. You're giving a performance appraisal. You look busy. You know what? You're one of my top performers. You did a great job this year. You did such a great job. See, I'm doing the one-minute manager thing, touching him on the shoulder. You did such a great job, I'm going to give you a raise and a trip to Hawaii. You know, there's only one little thing. You were mean to your coworker. Try to be a little nice to her. I'll give you the money to take her out to lunch to make up for it, okay? What's he going to say when he goes home that night? Is he going to say, my boss loved me, he gave me a performance? He's going to say, oh, that witch. Oh, that whatever her name was. Oh, she ruined everything. She's saying nasty things about me. I think he's sleeping with her. Right? And now there's this nasty thing. Now, he managed to turn a positive performance appraisal into he's mad at me because I made one little comment about something else. And he fixated on the negative rather than fixating on the positive. I see you smiling and nodding. Have you ever had to do a performance review on somebody? Oh, man, it's brutal. They never hear the good stuff, right? They only hear the negative stuff. Spouses are the same way by and large. All you do is nag, nag, nag. What? What? Come on, I say nice things all the time. You didn't hear any of the nice things. Why do you only hear the nagging, right? Be careful what you pay attention to. You know, I'm not sure. You know, I'm not sure why the world is the way it is. You know, it's just my job to figure out reality and tell you about it. It just is the way that it is. I'm not sure why. I don't know. Blame it on God. Sorry? Exactly. So this is the next thing. So this is creative visualization. Be careful what you pay attention to. So this is the power to rewrite your filter, to rewrite the things that you pay attention to. And so it's called self-talk, you know, rewriting your beliefs. So, this isn't, what's the thing, The Secret? Like, this isn't like The Secret, where, oh, if you say something somehow magically, mystically, it all comes true, Jiminy Cricket. Just wish upon a star, and whatever you wish will come true. This actually has basis in reality, right? See, I'm the guy that talks about reality, right? So the basis in reality is the reticular activating system and the screen and, people's negative filters and, stuff like that. So positive beliefs that you write down that remind you who you want to be and the things that you want to pay attention to. So for example, and again, I've been working on this for 26 years, so I've got mine. Right? So I've got 2 pages, the stuff that I say that I do, and I do this to remind myself about certain things. So let's see here. I carefully choose my words and thoughts. So the next time somebody cuts me off on the road, driving into school in the morning, do I scream out the window and flip them the bird? No, because I carefully choose my words and thoughts. Right? So I try to remind myself about that. I have a positive approach to everything. I notice and emphasize the beautiful and positive. Right? So if you say things to yourself about this, and you remind yourself every day, you become much more likely to do the types of things and to notice and emphasize the types of things that you tell yourself to notice. Things like, let's see, what's another good one here? I turn off the noise and focus on the person I'm speaking with. See, there's so much going on in your head that, somebody comes into your office and wants to talk to you. You got your computer screen open, your cell phone's ringing, the lights are blinking, you got some other meeting you need to go to. It's hard to turn off all that noise and focus on the person you're speaking with. But if you write this down and you tell yourself this, guess what? You're more likely to start to do this kind of thing. Especially if one of your things is, at the end of the day, I take the time to review how I did compared to how I want to be. So you can then go say, geez, that one student came in and I kind of sort of said, what do you want? Get out of here. Laura, get out of here. I didn't like your phone call. Right? And I go, gee, I felt bad. Maybe I should have taken the time. Maybe I should have been a little nicer. Maybe I should. I'm not talking about that. Oh, okay, good. Thanks. So stuff like that, or I do meaningful work, So the next time somebody gives me some crap job that I don't want to do, I say, no, you know what? I do meaningful work. I'm not going to do that one, right? And I make and keep commitments. So you can write these things down, stuff that you want to work on, and you become better and better at it over time. And they'll change from year to year. And as you get better at one things, you'll take them off the list or add them onto the list. Okay, so now it's 6 o'clock. I didn't get to the time management one, which was the answer to your question. So, but I'll keep talking afterwards, or we can talk about it afterwards, or something like that if you want. So, any questions, comments anybody wants to make? So I'm not quite done yet. I'm just gonna wrap up in that case. So yeah.
A lot of this stuff is personally outside my comfort zone, and kind of what I try to do every day is be outside my comfort zone. But this is on another level. So how do you suggest? Because a lot of it is subconscious. You don't really think about this stuff, and when you think about it, it might come off dumb, even though it's so basic and fundamental. How do you go about actually breaking this down and kind of, making this a reality, making this real?
Life doesn't come with an instruction manual.
What did you do?
I've read over 100 books. I've lectured on the subject. And this lecture, I like to believe, is much better than the one I gave last year, which is better than the one before that, and the one before that, and the one before that. And so part of it's just my own thinking through makes this lecture better. And my goals get better every year. My self-talk statements get better every year, and I've been doing it for 26 years. So read good books, read Stephen Covey, read Dennis Waitley, read Zig Ziglar. I think I've got a whole bunch of books listed on my website that you might want to look at. I'm just going to skip to one last thing, and then I will let you all go. So ultimately, business success and personal success is about being proactive on all this stuff. So you can either sort of go by your gut and go, and this is a perfect thing to say, so sorry if I'm picking on you the whole time. But just kind of sort of winging it and going through life, hoping that things somehow work out, you're kind of sort of setting yourself up for failure, or maybe you'll just be lucky. You marry the first guy who asks you, and hey, turns out not to be a scum. Lucky you, right? As opposed to paying more attention and proactively sourcing the type of person you want in a mate. So in the end, it's all about being proactive. Balanced living, and of course, it's a journey, not a destination. You always live in the present. So I hope I've given you some seeds of greatness, some thoughts to go in. It is the journey, not the destination. I wish you success, happiness, health, all that other kind of good stuff. And thanks for coming tonight. So thanks.